comes to mind when you think of Christmas? Do you have joyful feelings wash over you? Do you think about your family? Do you think about friends and getting together to celebrate? Do you think about the baby Jesus? Many of us do. We have nativity sets in our homes. We sing songs about him. But there's so much more to Mary's son. In fact, Mary's son, born on that first Christmas day, represents nothing less than the salvation of God's people. Christmas is about covenant fulfillment. It's about the fact that God promises to rescue his people from the penalty of sin, guilt, death, hell, and the devil, and makes good on it in the person of Jesus. That he restores the cosmos, that everything that he created finds its fulfillment in this little baby in the manger. The story of Jesus begins in Genesis 1 in creation, but the story of his birth actually begins in Genesis 12 with the story of a wandering nomad named Abram. Abram was a man who was living the good life. He was born into a wealthy home. His parents had lots of stuff in Ur of the Chaldeans, this place in the Middle East. And amidst the comfort of his family and family business, God chose to exercise his divine prerogative. He inserted himself into Abram's life, and he spoke to Abram. And this is what he said, Genesis 12. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. In you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." God says to Abram, leave everything, comfort, houses, lands, family, wealth, security. Live your life in such a way that all you have is all you need, me. And so, God says to Abram, you will become the father of all who live their lives in this same way. God says, by faith, trust in me for every needful thing in life and in death. See, in this moment, God says to Abram, I will bless those who bless you, and by you all nations of the earth will be blessed. He establishes the spiritual lineage, the DNA of Jesus of Nazareth in Genesis 12. He says that in Abram's seed, the entire earthly family, the entire human race could be blessed. Jesus, the Word incarnate. Many of you will know the story of Abraham and Sarah, how after many, many years they were unable to conceive. After a few more promises and encounters with God, the stars of the sky, the sand of the sea, they were unable to conceive a child. They sinfully tried to make it happen on their own and not trust in God's provision. Caused them no end of trouble even to this day. And ultimately, they gave birth to the child of promise, Isaac. Reflecting on this Genesis 12, the writer to the Hebrews in Hebrews chapter 11 says that by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out of that place that he was to receive as an inheritance. And he went out not knowing where he was going. By faith, he went to the land of promise, as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him for the same promise, for he was looking for the city whose foundations, designer and builder, was God. By faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive when she was far past the age, since she considered him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one man, and him as good as dead, were born many descendants, as many as the stars of heaven, and as many as the innumerable grains of sand by the seashore. In Genesis 12, God made a promise to Abram, to a wandering nomad, a nobody. First, he said, countless descendants. And so we see that the descendants of Abram are multitude, flesh and blood, all across the world. But he's also talking about spiritual descendants. All faithful people, all people who put their faith in God, are descendants of Abram. Secondly, he promised that all nations of the earth would be blessed through Abram's seed, through his children. That's what happened on Christmas Day. On Christmas Day, God's means, his avenue, his vehicle for blessing all of creation was made real through Abram's seed, the fulfillment of God's promise to this wandering nomad. Do you think Abram could see through the lens of faith? Do you think he could look 3,000 years through time and space and see the birth, death, and resurrection of Jesus? Do you think he could see all nations being blessed? Probably not. But often we can't see the way God will work things together in our lives. We just faithfully follow what he sets before us. And that faithfulness cultivates the soil where God's covenant fulfillment is realized. God makes a promise to Abram. All nations of the earth will be blessed by your seed, by your children. That promise laid dormant. It was there for 3,000 years. But it became flesh in the manger in Bethlehem. This Christmas, when you're looking at a nativity scene, when you look upon Jesus, see that promise that God made to Abram and keeps making in the person of Jesus. As you're listening to the Christmas story or hymns or carols, hear God's promise to Abram to bless all nations. Hear it fulfilled in the cries of Mary's baby boy. See, hear, and know that the promises of God find their yes, their amen in Jesus.